Okay, so hi, my name is Karen Johnston, ING Carrie Uye Johnston Iche, and I'm calling from Dakhká Khwáan Haines Junction today, and my guest today is Marilyn. Marilyn, please introduce yourself.
Good morning. Gunas Chish, Yadultin and Dūsts'ā, Dakhl'aweidí Clan. My name is Marilyn Jensen, that's my English name, and my Tlingit name is Yadultin. My Tagish name is Tagish. I'm from the Carcross Tagish First Nation, and I belong to the Dakhl'aweidí Clan, which is Killerwhale crest, and I live in Whitehorse right now, and this is I'm in the traditional territory of the Tagish Khwáan and Southern Shoshone, and the modern day political nations of the Ta'an Quechin Council and Kwáan Dun. So it's great to be here. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much for joining me today. So could you tell us a little bit about who you are as an entrepreneur, what it is that you do?
Absolutely. So early on in my career, I have an undergraduate degree in anthropology. And one of the things that happened was I realized there wasn't a lot of gigs happening within that field. And this was back in the 90s. You know, I just graduated with my undergraduate. So I came back to the Yukon and I worked for Council for Youth First Nations for a few years doing a elders documentation program. But then one of my colleagues finished her master's in anthropology, and that's Ingrid Johnson from Teslin. And we decided, hey, like, let's come together and try to do some work together, and kind of in this field, kind of in the heritage realm. So we started consulting back in the 90s, and I was just like a little pipsqueak in my 20s, and Ingrid was way younger too, and we just went for it, So we were two Indigenous women that started a consulting firm called Legendseekers. And we're strictly heritage, we're really focused on culture, and that's what we're going to do. And the very first thing that happened was Yukon government lassoed us in and got us working on the Yukon First Nation culture and land claims and self-government and all of that workshop, which we've literally been doing for over 20 years now. We've been teaching Yukon government this workshop. So there's that part of my entrepreneurship. And then the other part is the Dakhká Khwáan Dancers, which is more kind of a nonprofit, but we do charge for our performances, which we reinvest back into our dance group. And then the most recent part is another consulting firm that I work with called Social Innovation Consulting. And so myself and my colleague Thomas Shepard, who is somebody that I met 10 years ago at Carcross Tagish First Nation, and we developed the Lateral Kindness Workshop, which we've been doing for about 7 years and literally is just exploded, across the Yukon, across British Columbia, Alberta, and all over Canada, actually. So I have a lot of good things to say about COVID in that part. So my entrepreneurship is kind of, it's been a long process, and started, quite a while back.
Could you just explain a little bit more what you mean by lateral kindness?
Sure. So I also teach at the Yukon University, and I was full-time for about 7 years teaching in the Indigenous governance program. And now I teach occasionally. And so lateral kindness is a response in a movement to counter lateral violence, Indigenous lateral violence, which is a really predominant dynamic that exists in Indigenous community. So it's emotional violence, and it's not fun and it's not cool, but it's really, really prevalent in Indigenous communities. So I was actually asked by one of the nations, Kwáan Dun actually, to come in and teach their nation, so their leadership, all of their citizens, all of their staff, everybody else, about lateral violence and what we can do about it to change it. So I said, okay, but can I bring in my colleague Thomas? And they were like, sure, whatever you want. And so we started this thing, and, really lateral kindness is kind of a way of saying we're reclaiming back who we really are as Indigenous people, which is kind and noble and beautiful and strong and, lifting each other, because lateral violence is quite the opposite of that. So it's this really great work that I get to do, and it's so much fun and it's so empowering, and it's really, really, it doesn't feel like work. It's just been amazing.
Mm, that's beautiful. Um, so what are you learning about your business model over the last couple of months as we've been sort of working our way through this pandemic?
Well, definitely, I think number one thing is how to be flexible, and earlier you mentioned pivot, and from what I understand, it's like you got to figure out how do we work with this? How do we go with the flow and figure this thing out? So for Dakhká Khwáan, we've done some virtual performances. We've had to kind of readjust and kind of go into development mode. We're obviously not able to dance and do all the things that we usually do. And for the consulting, specifically for the lateral kindness workshops, first they just weren't happening. So the very number one thing I had to learn about was you need to have some savings for when times get rough. You know what I mean? You have to have a plan B. And I know, unfortunately, a lot of people who are newly in business and, are just kind of on a wing and a prayer don't have that. So thankfully, I had a little bit in the nest, because we just completely stopped. We were going like full on, just crazy busy. And then they just stopped because we couldn't meet, And so basically, eventually that evolved into, we started doing our workshops over Zoom, which is a huge adjustment as well, because so much of, having a good workshop is engagement and, being able to really, interact and all of that. So we've had to learn how to adjust and do this over Zoom, which we have successfully been able to do, which is amazing. I'm not going to lie, they are definitely better in person, but we've managed to figure out how to do it over Zoom. And so there's that. And then eventually we were able to open up to smaller workshops with just 10 people, 6 feet apart, following the rules, sanitizing and not touching the same microphone and things like that. So it's just been an adjustment, to following the safety rules and just figuring out how can we do this and keep doing it, because people still want it. The demand is still there. Like every day I get an email saying, "Hi, this is so-and-so, and I'm in Nova Scotia. How can we do this workshop with you?" So it's kind of provided like an opportunity to be able to reach further reach, through Zoom, and give us the experience and the challenge of figuring out how to do that.
Yeah, it is this funny thing of like learning how to like really try to find out how to actually connect with each other and people who you're working with through these like online portals, and be able to read body language and read those things that are so important in delivering, like when we're teaching people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The one good thing is when I taught at, it was formerly Yukon College, my classrooms were half in person, so people were actually in the classroom, and then the other half were people chiming in from all over the place. So the one good thing is I had a little bit of experience in, trying to engage and inspire people, like through distance.
Yeah, I feel fortunate too, working at the university or the college campus here in Dakhká, and like just learning how to teach food safety in an online environment when you've got students in Old Crow and Teslin and Beaver Creek and all over the place. And, it was awkward and hard, but I'm really grateful for those lessons now.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
What are you learning about yourself as a teacher in these Zoom environments?
Let's see. I guess, always my challenge is patience with technology. I'm pretty good. I'm, adapting, and I can, just jump on and figure things out. But it's always kind of been my, my difficulty and challenge. But, I really, I'm thankful for these challenges, because they help you grow and learn, right, and develop and become and have more skills. So, it's just keeping up with the technology, and sometimes things go wrong, like sometimes the Zoom just ends, and or you're off, or someone doesn't know that they need to put themselves on mute, and there's all sorts of background noise, stuff like that. So but it's just adjusting and trying to be patient and just go with it.
And so then what are you learning about like your customers, the people you're working with?
Well, I think the thing that's great about them is that they're just as willing to be adventurous, and and just to jump in and try new things as well. Like, yeah, let's try this on Zoom. Yeah, let's try it just a 10 people only, or 8 people, because including you two, it's 10 people workshop. So I'm seeing a lot of, like, I guess you would just call it courage. People who are just willing to try things and put themselves out there, and we'll see if this fails or not, which I think takes a lot of trust, right? So people are quite vulnerable these days, and of course we have fear, like I've never experienced in my lifetime a pandemic of this, this size, and neither have my parents, right? Like the last one, this huge, was 100 years ago. Like a pandemic worldwide where so many people are, there's it's just scary. We're doing things that we've never had to do before, like walk around with masks and things like that. So I'm really, I think, very, very inspired by people's courage, to just keep trying and to just keep going.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What are you learning about leadership? And you can speak to it either in yourself or what you're seeing around you.
I think in a lot of cases, I've really valued leadership in regards to people leading by example. So if say for an example, a person who is in a chief role, if I want the citizens to wear a mask, then I'm going to too. I think we've seen a lot of, I'm not going to name names or countries, but we've seen a lot of examples of how not to lead and through a pandemic. But here, kind of like closer to home, I think that we've seen a lot of, I'm here, I'm right in here in it with you, and I'm going to do what I'm saying. And I think that's probably one of the most powerful expressions of leadership that can exist, regardless of what level, of leader that you're at. So I know with our dance group, Dakhká Khwáan, it's really important for me that we keep safe, and that we are following the guidelines, and that we're doing what we're supposed to do, because that's really quite a big part of our identity and our mantra, is that we're following our protocols. We're doing, what we're supposed to do. So we've been really careful. We have practices, and we we're outside first of all, and rain or shine, and we make sure that we're 6 feet apart. And when I'm taking pictures and stuff, I'm like, everybody, make sure you're 6 feet apart, because we're posting this, and we're an example. And some people are like, well, we're in the same bubble. 2 different families. I'm like, well, people don't know that. So you still need to be 6 feet apart, because we want to lead by example, that we're doing things in a safe way. And we're thinking about our elders and other people who are, very vulnerable. And as the pandemic goes on, we're realizing pretty much everybody's vulnerable in this. It doesn't matter. Like, everybody is susceptible to getting really, really sick from it. So yeah, I think leadership is most expressed in the most powerful way through example.
So you mentioned there sort of these guidelines that Yukoners have to kind of keep us safe. And one of the big ones for us all we're talking about is this, like, practicing the safe 6, right? So, maintaining your family bubble, a tight-knit sort of circle, and washing our hands and staying home when we're sick, and don't gather in big groups. Like you're just saying, your dance group is always dancing outside, rain or shine. Like, that's amazing. It's so powerful to hear that you're continuing to do that work. And even though it's like awkward or not the way it normally is,
Right.
and limiting our travel to rural Yukon communities, and also isolating if we've traveled outside to something like a outsider jurisdiction. So which one of those are you finding the most challenging to to bring into your life. Like, they're pretty radically different ways of being.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the most challenging part on kind of all levels of my life would be the, limiting the number of people that we're with. I know it's, slowly opening up to more, but, like not being able to be in a group of more than 10 inside, is obviously definitely impacts the business that I do, which usually is workshops with like 20 or 30 people. And then the dancing too, for Dakhká Khwáan, we've really, really, really felt the loss of not having Attica, of not having, a celebration in Juneau, of not going to the Moose Hide Gathering. These are all a part of our kind of like our biannual and annual cycles that really feed us, feed our spirits, feed us physically, feed us spiritually, feed us emotionally, in all ways, and so just not being able to do that, to be together, and to see our people. I mean, we do, but it's not the same, and just being not able to dance. Like I'll just use the Attica example. That has been a huge integral part of our life for 10 years. Right. And it's a place where we've really, really grown and blossomed as, as a group, as a cohesive group. And really, if someone watched us for the last 10 years, they really would have seen the evolution of our, our process and our development and our, and how we've just gotten stronger and, more confident in what we do. And just not having that, like, I'm really here. We are at the end of the summer. I'm really feeling it, and I know the group is too. We actually just did a photo shoot for Indigenous Tourism Canada, and so we were dancing out in Carcross, but not like a regular performance. It was stop and go, and and lots of talking because they were like still photography, and I was like, my voice is so weak. Like I'm like breathing harder, dancing and singing. And so I realized, and I've also gained some weight through the pandemic, and I'm all like, what the heck, and I realized like dancing is such a huge part of my physical fitness, like it's drumming, dancing and singing all at once and just going so hard, often is a huge part of, like my physical regime. And so, yeah, I think that's been the hardest part, is not being able to gather in big groups.
Yeah, I sure miss seeing you guys too. Like all that love and joy that you bring in the expression of dance, like you gift that to us, and it's as the audience members, right, to receive it. And I miss receiving it.
Yeah, it's just such a beautiful, wonderful thing, and we just need it. Like our people need it. We need joy, and we need good things. And so, and I'm sure all of the other dance groups are feeling it, and all the other people who express themselves in music or, whatever it is, the way that they're able to feel joy and bring joy, are really, really missing it. So again, I was so thankful that many people are figuring out like sing their music over Zoom and, have virtual concerts and things like that, which is really wonderful, and we did a couple of videos as well, one for Black Lives Matter and another one for like the makeup brush challenge. But it just gives us a chance to put like, our regalia on and to be able to, sing and stuff like that. So it's good. Mm-hmm.
That kind of like goes into my next question, which is sort of how you're thinking about your business differently. So, if these rules, these guidelines are kind of their way of being for the next year, we've got to still keep adapting and having the courage to find new ways of building that community. So what are you curious about that way?
Well, I think, it just continues on to find ways to be innovative, right? And to have I think the energy to keep riding this wave, because here we are, how many months later, 5, 6 months later, and who, you know, at the beginning, we're like, okay, by May, we should be able to, you know, and then and now we're just like, we're not going to be able to do anything until really there's a, you know, a vaccine. You know, I don't know. I have no idea, you know, what the future looks like. But I think the hardest thing right now at this moment is conjuring up the energy to keep going, you know, to keep persevering. I know there's this very real thing called pandemic. You know, what is it? People are just starting to get haphazard because they're exhausted.
Yeah, COVID fatigue.
COVID fatigue, exactly. That's what it's called. People are getting exhausted emotionally, and they're just kind of throwing safety to the wind. And this is like an actual psychological thing of pandemics that they've seen before. And so we, you know, like we have to like really, really strive and find the energy to just keep strong with that, you know, to keep going with that. And a part of that, I think, is, you know, coming together, you know, maybe in smaller groups and figuring out how do we just keep this energy going? How do I, you know, find a way to keep, you know, making the dance group meet every 2 weeks and have a practice, and to keep encouraging us to like, hey guys, let's figure out our new songs, and let's, you know, carve those masks and things like that. So, you know, there's a lot of opportunity, but at the same time, I feel like we need kind of like lift, you know, a burst of energy to keep going.
Yeah. Where are you finding your wellness when you're feeling depleted, or what, like, how are you kind of keeping your life as much as you can in balance, knowing how hard it is right now to do?
Lots of sleep. I'm really, really fighting, you know, to eat well, you know, and for me, my biggest struggle is sugar. So I'm really trying not to eat sugar. And I like fight for my exercise. You know, I absolutely need to work out, you know, and being outside, I think, is this summer I've really found, you know, all the opportunities that I've had to go out on the land to be even more, you know, lifting than usual, because I think I'm more aware, you know, I'm more aware of just the beauty and the sounds and the, you know, how that connection, or, you know, our deeply rooted and spiritual connection to the land and the animals, and just, you know, our traditional way of life is really, really healing and important, you know, so I'm more aware of that. So there's just those things, you know, and taking the time, I think, to, you know, have discussions and talks, you know, and trying to connect, because I mean, previously that was not a problem, you know, being able to connect with people and get together, and, you know, and now it's, you know, we really have to make special measure to actually see people, you know, and come together and figure out how can we do that in a way that's safe.
Yeah, come together but stay apart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. As teachers, we're always talking about, you know, lifelong learning and growing our skills. So what's something that you're learning, or, you know, have you picked up a new skill or curious about something?
Let's see. Well, here's a cool thing. Very few people know this about me, but I am also a visual artist, but I just don't do it that much because I'm too busy, right? So in my, you know, in my past, I actually did a minor in art, fine art, and my thing was printmaking, right? So, and painting. And then as we started dancing, I started doing a little bit of beading, you know, just because of necessity. And but during the pandemic, I've picked up the beads and just created like a whole collection of things, you know, that I've made through the pandemic, just because I've had time, and really, really found like just such joy in that. And so my thing is that I don't do commissions and I don't really sell anything, but I'm making special things as it comes to me for specific people, because I want those people close to me, like my sister and my daughter and people around me, to have something special from me, right? To have something very unique and special that was created for them for a specific reason. Like, for an example, you just finished your undergraduate degree, and I'm really proud of you. And so here's some earrings that I made, and I made them special for you because I feel, when I see you, I think you're of a rose. And, so I tell them exactly what it's all about and why I made it and how I designed it and all of that. And a part of that is, because I have some time, but the other thing is, I lost my mom just over 2 years ago. And everywhere I went, people will say to me, oh, your mother she was just one of the kindest people I ever met. And she did this or she did that. And she drove up to Pelly to come pick me up because I got this job. And, and just all of these beautiful, sweet stories that people are sharing. And I realized, like, if you're going to leave a legacy, what a beautiful legacy. Is that people remember you because you were kind and you did something special. So kind of in that place in my life. And I just thought, I don't want to be to, like, sell things. I want to be so I can give things to people and that they will always have this, and hopefully it'll become like an heirloom that they can pass on, to their children and grandchildren. So yeah, that's it's not really a new skill, but it's definitely, I've been able to, work at it more and get better at it because I wasn't a very good beater.
Well, you've been posting some pictures of them on online, and I've loved seeing them. And that really just is that joyful expression of love and kindness.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you have any advice for emerging entrepreneurs right now?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that's really important is partnership and collaboration. As you're stronger with more, I think. And, say for an example, if you and I decided we wanted to collab on something, and, but I didn't know how to do something, but you did, and vice versa. We become stronger as a team, and we're more open, to be able to adjust and do more things. So I think partnership is a huge strength and benefit, in people who are starting off. Like, you're never completely alone. There's always somebody that can help you, and there's always somebody that you can help as well.
So thinking of that too, have you had any sort of like major aha moments over the last little while, like where your way of thinking about something has kind of really shifted in a pretty radical way?
Let's see. I think this might sound a little bit weird. So kind of where I think it comes with appreciating myself more, which is weird. I know that sounds kind of weird, but just acknowledging myself, because most people are always so hard on themselves. Oh man, I sucked. I could do better. I'm not that good, or I'm not good enough. And those kinds of thoughts can be really overpowering to a lot of people, especially when you're in business, because, when you're out there, you're quite vulnerable. You're putting yourself out there. You may have quit a job, with a lot of security or whatever it is, and you're just out there. You're out there in the world. So it's scary. It could be a scary place. And I think sometimes it's easy for people to really, like, not hold themselves up far enough and to acknowledge, what they're doing and how hard it is. And so I think for myself, I've really come to this place to acknowledge that, that I do good work, and, and I've contributed a lot to community, and I never think of these things myself, because I feel as Indigenous people, we tend to really, kind of self-lateral violence ourselves, where we're, that inner dialogue is negative. Our self-talk is sometimes bad, and not lifting, because, we've heard that a lot, through our lives, through the school system or whatever else, like that really resonated message through the assimilation, process in Canada. Basically, the core of that is you're bad. You're bad because of your very existence. You're bad. So I think for a lot of, specifically speaking about Indigenous people, we carry that deeply, so sometimes it's hard for me to really see what other people can see, and I really kind of thank, some of my business partners, because they helped me realize that, especially Thomas, Thomas is, we've come from completely different worlds. He grew up in, Ottawa, and I call his parents' house the Peter Pan house, and just completely different worlds. And sometimes he reminds me of, this is what you're bringing, girl, don't forget that, and your gifts are amazing. So I think it's that, which is, and it sounds kind of weird, but that's kind of what I, come to realize through this.
I don't think that sounds weird at all, Marilyn. I think that links back to what you were saying when we began our conversation today about courage.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those two things, they really go hand in hand. Is the courage to put yourself out there, to speak honestly, to be joyful.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a big part of it. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any songs or podcasts or books or things that are kind of like your jam and getting you through these days?
Well, one of the people that we really kind of noticed through our journey of researching for what lateral violence is, and and all of that, and kind of trying to make sense of it, is Brene Brown, and she actually, as I'm sure you're probably well aware, she has the third most watched TED Talk ever. And, she's a social worker from Texas that just started researching what people think about vulnerability and all of that. And so this word courage in her TED Talk, she said courage breaks down to meaning you have no fear and revealing yourself fully. So telling your story fully is the true root of the word courage. And so that means tremendous vulnerability, right? Of being able to just put yourself out there. And so I really, I love hearing that and listening to her stuff she has on Netflix and on YouTube, but also reading a little bit more about, what she means by that. So I think, a big part of this whole journey of, the pandemic has definitely taught us about vulnerability and really trying to welcome it more. So I love that concept, is that I'm definitely not perfect, because a big part of lateral kindness is being able to say, I'm not perfect, and sometimes I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm not afraid to tell you that, because in a really high, lateral violence zone, it would be like, I don't know what I'm doing, and there's no way on God's green earth I will ever admit that to you, because you're going to hurt me if you think I don't know how to do something, so it's that complete reversal. And anyway, I love Brene Brown's work, and, and what she has to share in the world. Highly recommend it to anybody, especially those in business, because you're definitely in a vulnerable place here.
Totally. It's definitely come up a couple times on the podcast series. So it sounds like the Yukon is reading Brene Brown, which I think is amazing, because it will help us live in that courage that we so Yukoners, I think that's where we want to be. I think we are a courageous people who live here, and I think it's time for us to really lean into that courage.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Any final thoughts before I let you go today, before we end up the conversation?
Just thank you for this opportunity. I really enjoy sharing and speaking and talking. That's one of my things too of my business, is that I'm really trying to do a lot more kind of official speaking engagements. I signed on with Speakers Bureau of Canada a couple of years ago, and so it's been one of my things that I really like to do. So it just gives me practice and a chance to connect with people. So thank you for that, and good luck to everybody. Don't give up. keep going, keep fighting, you know, and just find that strength and courage within yourself, and seek other people too for, you know, upliftment and connection.
Oh, thanks, Marilyn. Thanks so much for your time today. I'm really grateful that you spent the time with me today.
Yeah, thank you too. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.